It was neither cruel nor heartless. If they were sure to disappear, then for now he would content himself with dreaming about the memories he could clearly recall. Whether in the mountains or the city, the days flew by. Yesterday's scenery was not the same as today's.
Oh?
And such. Then he realized Aoko was now his son. She had given him no time to grieve. Distant nostalgia was beautiful, but that made it fleeting.
土産入道じゃないんだぞ、青崎。
No, Nage Nudo. The heck is that?
Google.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Google help.
Oh, the first things to autofill. A type of yokai told about on Sado Island in Niigata. Oh,
Okay.
some kind of cyclops.
Why the fuck would you know about that? From the mountains. Precisely.
Oh, wait. Fearsome yokai who appear at night to lone travelers on empty streets, intersections, or bridges. Now, there we go. Yeah, that's like the thing he was talking about, walking alone at night.
A faint dizziness made him close his eyes. Without sight, the mountainous landscape vanished, but in its place, a familiar voice could be heard. It was a booming voice that seemed to shake not only the mountainside he stood upon, but the entire mountain as well.
Was it saying, "Wake up, dumbass"?
And of course, Aoko Azaki reappeared, towering in the distance. He must have been tired, he thought, diagnosing himself while trying to make out what she was saying. Fearing the vertigo would return if he reopened his eyes, he decided to keep them closed.
Is this Nasu's fetish for giant girls coming in?
Possibly. It sounded like she was arguing with someone, though the tone was all he could make out. It wasn't violent, but certainly aggressive. Maybe she was picking a fight with another mountain across the way. Maybe she was kicking the absolute dog shit out of Tobimaru.
Yeah!
With a baseball bat. Breaking both his kneecaps. He wouldn't put it past her. After all, she was a troublemaker who blew up the moon. It was a fake moon, but, I mean, fair.
Well.
Oh, and now she's upside down.
And angry.
And at least holding her skirt down so it doesn't go up because
yeah,
of
that's kind of
gravity.
funny.
He couldn't quite grasp the conversation. Though somehow, vaguely, he had the sense that his human rights were being largely ignored. It was deeply unsettling, even for a dream.
Wow, he just happens to know that about the conversation, huh?
After several minutes, it seemed that the high-impact argument ended in Aoko's victory. Then suddenly, the boisterous voice faded. Praying everything would be back to normal, he opened his eyes. He took a deep, slow breath. The scenery was a far cry from the nostalgic dreamscape he'd just left, albeit not unpleasant either. Without a doubt, it was the amusement park.
Huh.
To him, his was his freshest memory.
I guess it was his
This was.
This, yeah, maybe.
You missed a T there. He recalled the House of Mirrors that Aoko Aozaki did. Why are they so sloppy with this scene in particular?
I don't know.
Like, what did this scene do to you people? Were you too busy being hyped over the giant moon laser that you forgot how to type? This park was a flawless replica of reality, but he was the only one there. Without having to worry about anyone chasing him, he sat down in the wreckage of Kitsy's rides and looked at the moon that should have been shot down. How? It wasn't supposed to be a new moon.
Oh.
Has it been like half a month?
Hmm.
The winter moon shone white like a jewel. It was layered over the figure of the girl who'd tried to kill him. If a mage was a witch, then she definitely fit the bill. I don't mind being killed. Such an absurd thing to say, but it spelled out of him so naturally.
でも
That had nothing to do with witches or magecraft. There was an echo in the gaps of his heart. If she hadn't spoken those words, then he wouldn't have responded as he did. In that moment, what had Aoko Aozaki said to him? As he tried to remember, his deep slumber grew to an end.
Yeah.
And with it, his chance to find the answers he so wished he could find. Then, Soujuuro woke up in an unfamiliar room, gasping. Not because the plush mattress he was on was softer than his apartment's cheap futon, or because everything from the carpet to the wallpaper looked expensive.
Oh.
Hi, Alice.
Hello, girl that tried to kill me.
And Aoko. Bewildered, he tried to catch his breath. She was the cause of his surprise. The moment Soujuro's eyes snapped open, there she was, the girl dressed in black, sitting at his bedside. The silence was deafening. Still
Supine.
Yes, sure, we'll go with that. It's a fine pronunciation. Soujuuro gazed at her. His impulse was to sit up, but he refrained, thinking it might be rude to be staring at the person sitting next to him.
It staring? Huh.
What?
I think the it is just unnecessary, to be staring at the person sitting next to him.
To be seen, caught, found, like...
I don't know.
It. She was just sitting there, on a chair. Well, good, I'm glad she wasn't just sitting there on nothing.
Yeah.
Dressed in black, modest clothes. Still, she projected an air that was anything but plain. Her monochrome outfit evoked indescribable elegance. Like a costume handmade just for her from the finest fabrics.
It probably is custom tailored, though.
It was enough to inspire poetic sentiments, even in Soujuuro. The girl continued to sit, completely motionless, not even breathing. Without realizing it, Soujuuro had stopped breathing.
Because he didn't want to break the stillness of the scene?
Genuine astonishment had him captivated. Such beauty. It was the first time he'd ever thought to use such a simple, plain expression to describe another human being.
Ouch. First time, huh?
Oh. So is this why he's not hanging out with Aoko and
I don't know.
appearances? Is he's too busy boinking Alice in the background or something? Making...
Well, they're both commenting on Alice's beauty, so hard to say.
I mean, everybody seems to want to bang Alice.
The boys at school were all interested for sure.
Yeah. She was the daffodil in perfect bloom. Or the ideal female form seen only in dreams.
Huh.
This quality was something to be cherished and admired in her. It was different from Aoko Aozaki's blindingly radiant vitality. After all, the flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long.
Okay.
And there was no way this girl would be allowed such a happy ending. Her life was a solitary fable of someone who left the world in exactly the same way they entered it. As a baby?
I don't know.
Is she, like, doing both the normal thing and the Benjamin Button thing? Like, she grows up to a certain point and then starts regressing back to baby?
I wouldn't look too hard into that.
Was her humanity
expression.
stolen at birth? Hers was an existence not of this... Is she a homunculus?
I don't know.
The more beautiful something was, the more tragic its fate. Growing up in the mountains, this was not something Soujuuro was taught, but something he learned from experience.
眠ってるみたいだ。
Soujuuro turned his head, as though he was being lured in. He knew it was rude to stare, but he couldn't fight his instincts. Then... Busted. This time his heart actually skipped a beat. She wasn't asleep after all. What's more, she noticed him. Expressionless, she was merely watching over him while he recovered. Soujuuro froze, unable to turn his head away or think of something clever to say. It was like staring into her eyes turned him to stone. Oh, been borrowing Medusa's shit, have you? Perhaps because of her delicate features, she looked somewhat younger than him. On the other hand, her tranquil expression made him feel like she was older. Jet black hair just to her shoulders. Not even.
Yeah, not quite.
Her large eyes were set like onyx stones, matching her hair. Devoid of emotion, her gaze stayed fixed on Soujuuro. Even after their eyes met, she didn't turn away. He wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. It was not unlike a frog being stared down by a snake. Nevertheless, he just couldn't bring himself to say something. Additionally, no matter how carefree Soujuuro might have been, he was painfully aware that this girl was as powerful as Aoko.
At least.
Less talkative, to be sure, but still powerful. Objectively, the scene was not unlike that of someone nursing a bedridden stranger. He had no idea what she may have been thinking about, but it seemed to him this harsh silence might last forever. All he could say for sure was that the quiet did not appear to bother her in the slightest. It was like some bizarre form of punishment.
これが青崎の仕込みなら手が込みすぎる
He thought, keeping his eyes on the girl. He felt like the moment he turned his head or blinked, she might stab him in the chest with a hidden blade. Requiescat in pace, bitch. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. And not because his imagination was running away with him. He'd recently seen, that orange-haired kid playing some new-fangled game from the future. In the stiffening silence, it was only natural that Soujuuro would think back on what had happened in the amusement park, and it made him uneasy.
Well, yeah, you don't really know much about Alice other than she wanted to kill you.
But stronger than any anxiety was his fascination with the girl. Her slender frame and milky white skin, the chill of her guarded stare, the warmth of her lingering femininity. It was the mixture of those two latter qualities that was almost magical. He stared at her for so long, he began to get the feeling that they had met somewhere before.
Outside the school? He saw her there, right?
Well, she also ran into him when he was doing his one delivery job and wearing like a catsuit or something.
Yeah. Huh.
Sometime before the conflict at Kitsyland. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he was sure he'd seen her previously.
その今更だけど
Am I dead?
Yeah.
His voice shattered the frozen silence in the room. He almost felt sorry for making noise as he spoke out to her, but they couldn't very well just sit and stare at each other forever. Though he might have been the only one thinking they were staring, and perhaps she thought they were glaring at each other.
ここはどこで君は誰だかわかるかな
She narrowed her eyes slightly, though apparently not out of offense. There was no response. Just as he was thinking it would have been better to keep quiet, she quietly raised her hand.
これ、あなたのでしょ?
Your hand? No, your hand is yours. Her voice was cold, but melodic. A white piece of cloth was wrapped in her fingers. There was no need to tell him what it was. He was conscious enough to recognize his own possessions. Soujuuro sat speechless as she tossed it to him. Picking it up, he wrapped it around his neck.
Ah.
Okay, we're drawing attention to this again.
Yeah.
青子はそれを知っている。
Oh, you bastards.
Fuck you guys, first of all.
Oh, man. Alright.
He looked away in response to her blunt question, distracted by something unrelated. She called Aoko Aozaki by her given name, which led him to believe that the mountain Alice had argued with,
Or Aoko had argued with.
in his dream was actually the girl beside him.
That sounds about right.
どうだろ
As sincerely as he could, he answered without presumption. There are things that should be known and things that need not be. There are also things that should be told and other things that must not be. Soujuuro wasn't exactly sure what that she was referring to. However,
うでもその方がいいとは思うよ
He smiled slightly at her question. Perhaps impressed by his response, the overwhelming pressure in the room dissipated noticeably. Or maybe she'd been more nervous than he was the entire time. Unlikely.
Yeah.
Projecting the image that his room was her domain a tad too strongly. The tension faded. Soujuuro tried to sit up and prop his arms beneath him. Now that they were talking, it seemed awkward to stay lying down. However, his body felt strange as he tried to move, and it surprised him how difficult it was to sit up. It took everything he had just to raise his upper body to a sitting position.
俺洋服のままだ
Oh wow, I'm still dressed. That's amazing.
Why'd you take off my neck bandage then? As he threw the covers back, he tilted his head quizzically.
申し訳ないこんないい布団なのにこれじゃ不釣り合いだというよりもったいない
Did you at least take his shoes off before putting him in that bed?
She stared at him, not expecting him to complain about not wearing pajamas while sleeping. Somehow, it appeared that he had done something to surprise her.
なんでだ何もしてないぞ俺
Pouting a bit at the unwarranted curiosity, he turned to face her. Although he was still mostly lying down, it was at least a more dignified position.
それでさっきの続きだけど
Indeed, he needed to find out where he was and who she was before anything else. Actually, the more he thought about what happened at the amusement park, the more he got a sinking feeling in his stomach.